Hello, this is R Thoughts. I am Rus R Russell, where I will talk about topics. And there been something that I want to talk about, and I'm gonna record talking about it. And that is Karl Jobst, or what Billy Mitchell been calling him, Karl Jobst. Yeah, I remember first hearing Karl Jobst on Super Mario 64 since I was like super into Super Mario 64. Like, that was the stuff I would watch online or like research. It just came to my succession list on Super Mario 64 speedrun stuff from Karl Jobst. I remember like hearing some guy on the mic who I don't want to say his name, but he claims all of you know Karl Jobst because of the Billy Mitchell lawsuit. I knew Karl Jobst because of his topic on Super Mario 64, but not because of the Billy Mitchell lawsuit. I think that after a while, when I saw Billy Mitchell had gone insane and I need your help, that's when I first heard of the lawsuit. It wasn't because of the lawsuit that I heard about Karl Jobst. I should talk about it. Like, what was it? The lawsuit Billy Mitchell is suing Karl Jobst was about the defamatory statement that he made on Apollo Legend. Karl Jobst had mishandled the situation and he took from a random Reddit post about Apollo Legend ending his life because it was too much for Billy Mitchell's settlement. In truth, Apollo Legend never had to pay a single dime to Billy Mitchell, only if he didn't mention him. If he did, he would have to pay a fine. And so, I guess Karl Jobst had a huge hatred, so he was allowing himself to listen all the negative stuff and was trying to paint Billy Mitchell evil. He even said it, like, I am convinced that Billy Mitchell is evil. And that was a huge no-no to do. And because of that, and Billy Mitchell was losing money based on that statement, he needed to sue Karl Jobst. He already had a bad reputation for getting caught cheating, but Karl Jobst was making it worse because he was pointing fingers at Billy Mitchell on the reason why Apollo Legend committed suicide. Now, I thought, just like many people who watched it, thought that Karl Jobst was being sued by Billy Mitchell for cheating allegations. Like, when Karl Jobst would talk about Billy Mitchell, he would talk about the cheating lawsuit that Billy Mitchell had. And he would try to connect the lawsuit that he had to these other lawsuits that Billy Mitchell is doing between twin galaxies. However, I guess many people knew the true nature of the lawsuit, but to the general public, they thought by listening to Karl Jobst side of the story, that the situation was on cheating allegations. But instead, it was about Apollo Legend. Just like Andy Worski tweeted it. After following this situation for years and rewatching all the videos about the situation last night, my thoughts are Karl manipulated his audience into believing that this case was about the cheating allegation and not the Apollo Legend lie he was actual being sued for. I had to agree with Andy Worski. And it just doesn't help neither that news outlets was talking about the situation and they probably were misled. I don't know how that went down. I don't know if news outlet have reaches to Karl. I can't say because I wasn't there, so but they probably do thought the same thing. Daily Mail Australia published an article on October 13, 2022 about Billy Mitchell suing Karl Jobst for cheating. Here's the title of the article, and this is what is titled. Game Over. Donkey Kong High Score record holder sued YouTuber who accused him of cheating, and he wants $450,000 in damages. In 9 News, it was mentioned about Billy Mitchell suing Karl Jobst for, and I quote, over cheating claims, unquote. I don't know if the news were misled on it. Maybe they contact Billy and this was like his strategy on continuing to mislead. I can't say. I don't know what's going on, but Karl Jobst never did this. Because he actually put 9 News into his video and make it seem like it was about cheating claims. He shouldn't have corrected, if he was an honest person, he shouldn't have corrected the true nature of the lawsuit. But he never did. And he really did mislead people into thinking the lawsuit was about cheating allegations. Quote, well, he couldn't talk about the real reason because it was related to the lawsuit. Unquote. And, quote, I don't want to give away any strategy on the true nature of the lawsuit. Unquote. It doesn't work because as we all saw, he kept making videos on the guy who was suing him. Now, I don't know, that's been part of the lawyers telling him not to talk about it, but he didn't handle it well. Not talking about the lawsuit. And it just makes it seem like he was hiding the true nature. And maybe it has something to do with his GoFundMe scam. But I'm not Karl Jobst, so I don't know what went through his mind. And not only did I thought, or I was misled, that the lawsuit was about the cheating allegations. Like Billy Mitchell seems like he had thick skin when it came to cheating. Like he's trying to push that he never cheated and that his Donkey Kong scores was legitimate. But yeah, what I was misled was Karl Jobst was being a journalist. Karl Jobst used to describe himself as a speedrunning journalist. He claimed that in keyword investigate video game achievement and history. He claims that he went to university a couple of times, but he dropped out of it immediately. And this is what gets me too. He claims that he hates studying. I always thought that he had a real job and it was being professional journalist. I could have sworn that he had a degree on journalism and he used his skills for his YouTube channel. I really just thought that he was a professional journalist. He used that skills on his YouTube channel. And what made me believe was that he was implying his good skills that he have a degree on and put it on his YouTube channel. Hence, he was so good at it. But to contradict being a journalist, he made a tweet, and I quote, "I have literally never called myself investigative journalist," unquote. Geez, when it convenient to him, he is not a journalist. Just like some ordinary gamers, or should I call them, some ordinary loser, for lying about being a computer engineer. Which that's a whole rabbit hole to talk about. But yes, some ordinary gamers for over 10 years lied about being a computer engineer. Well, not only did he lie about that, he lies about his expertise in the stuff that he does on coding. Obviously, Karl Jobst and some ordinary loser would pretend to be something they're not to make the audience feel like they have credibility. They will trust these guys because they're expert on the field. But as it turned out, Karl Jobst and some ordinary loser are just some guy in a mic. And this is like a life lesson to tell that don't always believe what you hear on the internet. Like, any person could start a YouTube channel and then start saying stuff and claims that they're expert, that they have an education on it. But man, oh man, if you listen to some ordinary loser, he will claim he's a lot of things. Contradict a lot too. And when it's convenient to him, he will say, "I don't know why, but people think I have a high education degree. I don't." And it just so feel weird when you listen to the timeline. It just doesn't add up. And that's the thing. Like Dreamcast guy. Like, he will lie that he was homeless. And it just doesn't add up on his age when he got the Dreamcast. It just feels so weird. And actually, he made a fool of Moist Critical, if it were to be believed. But Moist Critical is a locale on the internet. He would say that he trusted it, Karl Jobst and some ordinary loser. Funny how he will persistently point those two, and that these guys are good to believe. As it turns out, it is not true. Moist Critical blindly claimed it, and I quote, "He's suing Karl and is a very expensive lawsuit. So far, it's been like $180,000, according to Karl. But he wasn't done there. Just 2 weeks ago, Billy Mitchell come back out of the shadows to sue Karl again, even though the previous lawsuit is still ongoing. He thinks that the new lawsuit has 2 weeks ago. Even so, it was occurring months ago, and Billy didn't even perceive the second lawsuit. He actually accused the situation without doing research. Better yet, he probably didn't even bother to contact Karl Jobst for this. And if he did, he was into it because he was a witness to Karl's stand on the lawsuit. Well, to be fair, when you go to court, you won't be informed what the situation is. You're just there to be a eyewitness, getting questions on it. But still, he either spread misinformation or he's a low-cow idiot, just like Boogie 2988, Rings of Redemption, and Darkside Phil. I never liked Moist Critical, especially on the jokes that he makes. Just like some ordinary losers. Just like the dirty jokes that he make. Like, I had a terrible first impressionation of Some Ordinary Loser. Like, just the stuff that he say. And I'm sorry, how could you be a computer engineer if you begin your video with, I'm scratching my balls? I'm sorry, Dad. It just feels like inconsistent with him. He actually said this too. Some Ordinary Loser said this. When he's in the office, he doesn't like to listen to dark humor or dirty humor. And if he does, he will shut it down. But then, in a different video, he would explain that in his job, he will make a dark humor and everyone will laugh about it. Well, there goes the I will shut it down. Yeah. Either he has changed between that timeline, or he's lying to make himself look good at the time. Because it's all about convenience. Yes. Oh yeah, but I should be fair with this. He did mention hints on the nature of the lawsuit on Campbell 331. But he also said the reason was stupid. Really? Stupid. So you're telling me that Billy Mitchell suing you over claiming that he killed another human being is stupid? Either it was stupid to him, or he just doesn't want to admit the serious levels of it. Also, in Campbell 331, Karl Jobst says stuff that he shouldn't have said, like the lawsuit being stupid. And seriously, when I say this, if he wins, he was not going to be a good winner about it. And that he was going to make tons of videos bashing Billy Mitchell. Boy, that broadcast that he did with that low-cow did more damage to his lawsuit. I might get to it later about his feelings on his lawyers. But it really does tells you on Karl Jobst, the character. Because if he really did felt that way, then it's just sad to hear. But yeah, Campbell 331 have a reputation of scamming his people, especially with the GameStop situation. And Campbell, it just isn't the right place to talk about the lawsuit. Like, people have already lost his trust on the guy. And so they're not going to Campbell 331 to listen to Karl Jobst. Like, Karl Jobst shouldn't have talked about the situation on his channel to clarify the nature of the lawsuit. I'm sorry, but it's just not it. Campbell 331 is not a locale. And that it just isn't the right place to talk about it. But I think that Karl Jobst doesn't want to talk about the lawsuit was because of a major lie that he does. And it involved money. Money is the true root of evil. And that the moment money is involved, I felt like he had to do a deception reaction. I'm just going to talk about the events of it. Karl Jobst was originally funded for his lawsuit by Notch. During the middle of the case, Karl Jobst exhausted Notch in financing his lawsuit on May 2022. There was a mandatory mediation meeting on May 22, 2022 between Karl Jobst and Billy Mitchell to help resolve the current lawsuit at the time. Sadly, it didn't get resolved, but Billy didn't even perceive a second lawsuit. And there was months of silence on Karl receiving the correspondence about possible second lawsuit. By the time Karl lost his finance support for the lawsuit and he failed to dismiss the case, he needed money. Like, he need the support that he does. Hence and below, this lead to his GoFundMe scam. He thought that if he was transparent on the true nature of the lawsuit, it wasn't going to get the support that it need. So on November 3, 2022, he told the old legal received notice and treated as if it was the upcoming lawsuit. Apparently, on all the times he claims he never believed Billy Mitchell under oath, it was the only time where he believed him was the second lawsuit. Billy Mitchell believes Karl Jobst didn't think the second lawsuit wasn't happening, or at least he was unsure if it ever was. Interesting that he felt like he needed to deceive his audience on the second lawsuit. It's probably feel coincidental, but right after the GoFundMe scam, he had brought a $1 million mortgage of a home. It looks luxury. Now, I don't want to accuse, and I don't want to, but it seemed oddly suspicious that after receiving the money, that he would then buy an expensive home. Well, it's up to the audience to believe what they think happened. But it's sadly sad that he took people money thinking that they were going to have a big win on a lawsuit, because Karl Jobst does a good job on thinking that he's going to win a cheating allegation lawsuit. However, they lost the money and was given to Billy Mitchell. Because in Australian law, if you lose a legal case, you're gonna have to pay the person legal fee. And that's what Karl had to do. So yeah, if a lot of people felt like it was a scam, then it is a scam. Now, if some people would have been more open-minded on the situation, they would have listened to Billy Mitchell's side of the story. You know, there's always two sides of the story. Billy Mitchell have always been on his outlet on what is the true nature of the story. Like, he will give his reason of why is he suing Karl Jobst. And it is sad because a lot of people just didn't listen to him. Karl Jobst did a great job painting him as a villain. And as a result, some people, many people perhaps, just thought that he was just going to say lies. And there is a lack of view on his statement on his YouTube channel. As of July 31st, 2025, a statement from Billy Mitchell, Karl Jobst, part 1 out of 2, contains 47,576 views, and a statement from Billy Mitchell, Karl Jobst, part 2 out of 2, contains 5,720 views. If many people would have looked at his side of the story, they already know the true nature of the lawsuit. And it's just so sad. Many people just didn't. But yeah, speaking of Karl Jobst, he noted that he was careful to use words like quote and unquote and quote but unquote. But no words like because in his video about Mitchell and Apollo Legend. As the judge wrote, no reasonable person could see that video and not come away with the idea that he was pointing the finger at Mitchell. And it is sad because he may not have said Billy Mitchell is the reason, but he surely did imply. And because of that, people will believe it. He could always say, I never say that. But you're implying that. And he's just blaming the fans for having their imagination run wild, which is just what a lot of people would do. And by the way, Jobst did not care about his family. If he did, he would have resolved the lawsuit during the mandatory mediation meeting on May 22nd, 2022. I'm sorry, but he really did ruin his family lives. Alright? He have a child, and the child becomes part of your priority. But no, what Karl Jobst think about was himself in trying to ruin another man's life. And I'm just going to call it what it is. He didn't care about his family. If he did, he would have settled the lawsuit. But I guess maybe because he thought he was gonna win the lawsuit, that it didn't came across of his mind. But there was videos where he talks about, oh, even if I did win the lawsuit, it was too much to handle on his finance. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's just, it doesn't become just your finance, it becomes your family finance. And what bothers me the most too is that he would use his family to shield himself. According to people on the lawsuit, they informed that Karl Jobst burst out a tear when it came to it was too much of a burden for his family. I'm sorry, but he's just like Richard of Review Tech USA / Richard Tomorrow. Like, he would try to shield his family to avoid criticism or to escape from a few. I'm sorry, but I do not believe Richard cares about his family because he does a lot of stuff that screams horrible father. And that's what I think Karl Jobst was doing. He was trying to shield himself from by mentioning his family. And I know that guy did not care about his family. I'm sorry. But one thing I don't like too is that when people attack others, they attack not just the individual, but their family and friends. And it's like, their family and friends have nothing to do with the situation. It should be between you guys. And that I just don't like it at all to get somebody else's skin. Even so, they just didn't want to be involved with this. I'm sorry, but and sometimes family are not close to each other. So yeah. And what I would never do is try to attack someone else's family just because I don't like them. But it's sad because Karl Jobst also claimed that he wouldn't mess with Billy Mitchell's family because he doesn't want to be low. He doesn't play that kind of game. However, in a leaked Discord message, he called it his son stupid. There goes, he doesn't play that kind of game. What a hypocrite. Also, he wants to take away Billy hot sauce. He's even more low of thinking that. I'm sorry, but not only is he trying to attack Billy Mitchell's family, he's trying to attack his other stuff, his company. In which, by the way, if Karl Jobst does claim that he's gonna run Billy Mitchell hot sauce company, does he even know how to run the company? Like, does Karl Jobst can even operate a hot sauce company? Because from what I now know of Karl Jobst, he's just a guy in a mic who does not know anything. And he's trying to pretend that he is some expert, even so he's not. But yeah, it just shows the kind of character Karl Jobst is. And yes, placing things in a order in a video that's entirely about the case and then hiding it is misleading. On his retraction, he put it on a Dark Soul video. It had nothing to do about Billy Mitchell nor did he make an entire video on the retraction of Billy Mitchell. Like I said before, when I saw Karl Jobst, I was watching him for Super Mario 64. I didn't care about the guy. I was more interested on the topic that he was talking about. And I bet those who watched Dark Souls felt the same thing. They didn't watch Karl Jobst. They were trying to watch Dark Souls. Karl Jobst claims that he put it in a Dark Souls video so it could get a lot of views. I think that's a lie. First and foremost, yes, even so, his Billy Mitchell video did took low views compared to Dark Souls. However, I think that people would watch more if they see the topic of the retraction rather than placing it. And you know he was hiding it because if you look on the chapters of the Dark Souls video, it will say all of these other chapters, he placed the retraction in the end, and it is not a chapter at all. When you scrolled, it's not there. Obviously, does not want people to look at the retraction. He didn't even place it on the beginning of the video. At least when people are trying to see it, that's the first thing they see. No, he placed it in the end. And typically, people don't go watch things till the end. They don't see from beginning to the end. So the views on the video didn't even matter. And if you look in the analytics, less people were watching in the end. Many people don't tend to watch the credits or the other informative stuff. Like the go ahead to subscribe or watch the other channel or sponsors. People don't want to see that. So they just skip that. Actually, some people might even think that the video ended it because when he was done talking about the Dark Souls, it will fade to black. I know I tend to believe that as well. The moment it fades to black, you think it is done. That's like a signal. And it just took a while it was black. So it felt like he was intentionally hiding it. He shouldn't have been more of this and just accept that he had to retract something. But sadly, you could tell he had an ego and that retracting it would hurt it. He just doesn't want to be wrong. But I guess it is what it is. Now, I'm somebody who liked to see the credits in the end. Me and my brother had to watch from the beginning to the end. The credit is part of the movie. I have to see the credits. Some people don't do it. Yeah, I think it's respectful to see who made stuff the movie. So yeah, if people have just look from the beginning to the end, they will at least know he will make a retraction. But he shouldn't have known better that people will not look through the end. But again, I think he knows this and was trying to hide it to protect his ego and to keep the narrative that Billy Mitchell is a killer. On Karl Jobst's Discord message, he once praises his lawyer about having a great mind. But after the lawsuit, he called them stupid in his other leaked Discord message, which, yeah, tells you a lot about Karl Jobst. He shouldn't have kept things quiet. This is not a legal advice, and I'm no lawyer, but it's common knowledge that lawyers will tell their client, do not talk about the case. It may go against in court. Sadly, Karl Jobst did not want to follow that. He said it on a leaked Discord message when a fan asked him about why you didn't keep your mouth shut. And he said that who wants to go live by that principle. It's funny too. On Karl Jobst leaked a Discord message, he once praised his lawyer about having a great mind. He felt fascinated how smart they are. But after the lawsuit, he called them stupid in his other leaked Discord message, which is something that I do want to say. That after the lawsuit, there were a whole bunch of stuff that came out about Karl Jobst. And there were a lot of leaked Discord message. And that it just paints him a terrible person. Interesting too, because when he's on Discord, he's probably showing his true colors. Or he probably is treating his online friends like if they were their real friends. But I'm sorry, but meeting people online is just not the same as meeting people in person. Like, I'd rather trust less on the people online, especially if they're gonna backstab you. But when it comes to YouTube, he will try to act professional, and keyword also, try to act. Because it was always interesting on the choice of words and his attitude when it comes to, like, talking. He will say, and I quote, "This is bad ass crazy," unquote. And it just rubs me the wrong way when he curses, because it just seems unprofessional. It is similar to how I feel with Creepshow Art. How her attitude on stuff just rubs me the wrong way. I just don't like it when they're being hothead about it. It just shows more what they are. Like, I don't think you're a good person if you talk dirty, talk trash, and being disrespectful. You're acting more like a villain when you do that. And that's what Karl Jobst tends to do on his videos. Like, if he was in a news outlet, they would try to make sure he stays sane about it. He wouldn't be having a job in the news if this is how he talks. So yes. And I think that Karl Jobst does not know how to do real journalism. Now when you look back at it too, people are like calling out, hey, this isn't what you do when you're trying to make videos. Also, what was leaked about him after the lawsuit was that he used to do dating advice before he was doing spree running content and record breaking in video game history. He used to do dating advice, and it was very cringy too. I don't think the guy had real knowledge on the subject, and it makes sense now. Like, he will lie that he was an expert. And it's interesting too, like I said before. the man hates studying. But in order to be an expert, you need to study. But I think that this guy thinks that he knows stuff, that he immediately like to paint himself like an expert. And oh boy, when you look at the video, there's a lot to critique about him. Like, first of all women are different, okay? I feel there's no difference between a man and a woman when it comes to approaching for dating. Everyone is different. Alright? But Karl Jobst was saying stuff that put my head on my face. And yeah, I'm sorry. And there was a time too that he looked like he was going to have a success, but then he just walks away. Dude, it's always going to be different. And I just disagree too on it. But this also made me think too that I think Karl Jobst had a problem approaching the women because he couldn't found love. I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna say this. When I finally saw what his wife looks like, there was something in my head that went on. And it just felt like, and it just screams. I don't want to accuse what Kino Casino said, what he did, because it may not be true. But I just couldn't help but think in the back of my mind, did Karl Jobst not found love, so did he have to resort to mail order bride? I could at least relate to Karl Jobst if he ever fell into a Great Depression because he having a hard time approaching the women, and so he went to other means to do it. But I look at his wife, and she looks very unattractive. She doesn't have a curled body. I'm sorry, but it just looks so skinny. She was so unattractive. To some people, I guess it's attractive, but to me, it just looked, ugh. But yeah, it's just like with me. I couldn't found love, so I went through other means. That's how I met my wife. And at least I felt super lucky that my wife is sexy. Oh, to at least clarify, I didn't met my wife through, to clarify, I didn't met my wife on Mail Order Bride. I didn't did that. But, still, Karl Jobst, I felt that maybe he couldn't have found love, so he went through other means. But who knows? But yes. And I will get to it later about what had been leaked about Karl Jobst and explain more on his personality. Karl Jobst bashed it, the completionist, for pretending like nothing ever happened when it comes to his charity scam. Yet, he perceived it, the exact same thing. He made a video unrelated to the lawsuit. Then, he had to take it down from the backlash. It's funny too, he claimed it that he needed to make the video because of the sponsors. Now, I would say this. The completionist response to his charity scam was prepared probably by lawyers. And that the completionist probably didn't want to talk about like what's going on his personal life on a program that's supposed to meant to escape from realism. Like people watch content to escape from the real world. It's escapism. And so trying to put real life situations will probably ruin the content. Many people will do this. And that whenever there's a personal situation, they will post it on their social media. Like YouTube isn't the place to talk about their personal lives. But yet Karl Jobst trying to hold standards to others. But yet when it comes shoved to him, he wouldn't do the same. And it is exactly what he did when it comes to the camera. He said that he does not do good on camera. I don't believe it. I'm sorry, but I do not believe it because he does good on camera on his other videos. And he's allowed to show his face on other platforms. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. It's most likely that he's ashamed of the situation, so he wants to hide his face. But yeah, that was like an easy indication that Karl Jobst is a dishonest person. And Karl Jobst did a good job explaining about his consorcery. Yet he bashed the completionists the exact same thing. It actually shows like Karl Jobst and some ordinary loser collab to expose the completionists. Only to then those two are being exposed. I somehow now wonder, did the completionist was mishandled? Like was framed in a way? But I do think the completionist deserve his downfall. I really do. The completionist is a liar, just like Karl Jobst and some ordinary losers. Just like some ordinary loser, he will make a timeline that does not make sense. And he makes so many inconsistencies. So I do think the completionist does deserve his downfall. And I had to praise Karl Jobst to expose him on his lies. At least I will agree on Karl Jobst on that. And I think he did a fantastic job on exposing the completionist on his lies. But now knowing Karl Jobst is not a journalist, because I really just saw at the moment that he was a professional journalism and did a good job on his skills to take down the completionist. But yes. And it's funny too that his own words is coming back to haunt him. Like from Campalot 331, now him how he was exposing the completionist. His own words is hurting him, showing that he can't be a consistent character. But yes. Now, the one thing I do want to talk about is Karl Jobst's ugly face. Now, I remember looking on his video that he done on Guitar Hero. And when he was showing his face, I went like, oh. Thinking also that at the moment that he speedrun too much, so he didn't took care of his acne. Like when you watch something too much, you will have bag under your eyes. And some people just don't take care of their looks. That's what it seems like what Karl Jobst did. Also, he was in a dark room, which I know is a stereotype, but people who watch these stuff are in a dark room, and that's like a not a healthy thing to be. Like the human needs sunlight. It helps them provide vitamin D. But I don't know, maybe he's just also in a dark room while playing GoldenEye 007. Yeah. Now, there were leaked a Discord message revealing something that shocked me, and that Karl Jobst enjoy watching love moments. And it was surprising to see that he watched over 500 hours of it, and he was pretty proud of that achievement. It tells me a lot, too, that Karl Jobst does not spend time with his family if he spent too much time watching these kind of stuff. Some people even consider that the fact that Karl Jobst have a favorite love star, that he was cheating on his wife. And it's just so sad what Karl Jobst say. Like makes you wonder, just like someone loser, what kind of a mind do they got? The love scenes that Karl Jobst is watching, they are fake. It's not true. Just like the food and houses and catalog, yeah, they're fake. And what Karl Jobst is doing is a dangerous game. Ugh. It's one thing to admire beauty, but it's another if you what you do with it. And it's a huge no-no. People shouldn't be doing that. And I really disagree with that lifestyle. It's not even a real lifestyle. But oh boy, now knowing that, it reflects on his face. Alright, when you have a face like that, you could probably tell this person watched too much of it. Like it does something to your body. Oh yeah, and just take a look at his. Give me a moment. Oh yeah, and I want you to take a good look on the thumbnail of the broadcast. Like, take a really good look. That's a face of somebody who's watching way too many love scenes. Ugh, that's gross. Like, ooh. Now, if one good look at this, somebody will say this guy does not take a good care of his skin. There are research studies that show that watching too much of it will cause you to make yourself look ugly. When you OJ, your bottom will have a stench, and you will feel burnness. It's rather good not to do it, because on the long term, you won't feel that effect. And I think Karl Jobst was just addicting to the short term moments. But in reality, you will feel more better long term if you don't do any of that. I don't do it, and I'm glad I never did. Like, there's a difference between admiring beauty and then what you do with that beauty. And that's a huge no-no to a lot of people, including myself, because it's a very powerful thing and it makes people do crimes. And I'm just glad that at least Karl Jobst yet haven't been exposed on crimes. Because the last thing we all need is others to get hurt. And I just hope that this lawsuit will stop Karl Jobst from hurting other people. For the longest time, he'd been hurting Billy Mitchell's reputation. I was believing Billy Mitchell was evil. But now, knowing the truth, Billy Mitchell is not really a bad guy. In fact, in the plot twist, he was the hero of the situation, the good guy. And all of this made me a fan of Billy Mitchell. To the point that my brother brought a poster of Billy Mitchell. I became a fan of Billy Mitchell. I was laughing at some of the trash stuff that he did on Karl Jobst. It was so funny. He created a discount code, Karl Jobst. That's funny. Just get rid of the J, put a L, Karl Jobst. And he even made a poster of him, and then there's Karl Jobst. There's even a cincher shirt that says it. But my brother saw the video game player of the century poster, and I saw that was a better image. But I thought the one with Karl Jobst was funnier. Oh, if we even brought his hot sauce, the collab that he did with Local Live, it had a signature of Billy Mitchell and Keemstar. Oh boy, I can't wait to watch Local Lives and eating with Ricky world famous hot sauce. Me and my brother should watch Local Live while eating Ricky world famous hot sauce. It's that collaboration label. Oh yes, I know we're gonna have a fun time. That win that Billy Mitchell had was pretty important because now it makes him the hero and earn the hearts of many people, including myself. But yeah, if there were one thing I wanted to say to Karl Jobst, do not poke the bear. And if the bear's awake, do not act like you're a hunter expert and making people believe you're a hunter. And when the bear maul at you and your family, do not try to cry about it. And when the park ranger comes, question you, and asks for your license, you better prepare that the answer, I never said I was a hunter, goes well. Which all the other hunters will laugh at you, especially probably how you handle the bear. Don't get into a situation that you know deep down you can't handle, especially if it involves family. And just be yourself. Don't be somebody that you're not. Like you're just a guy in a mic. And that's something people also need to learn their lesson on. Is that when you see somebody online, they're most likely fakes. They don't know what they're talking about as situations. So yes, and this is why there's so many downfall in YouTube. People can't keep the act. But yeah, this has happened. Our salt.